Awesome. Thank you, Sensei. Everybody watching, welcome. It's Thursday night. It's 8:30 Toronto time and Ontario time. And I welcome you to Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. I am so absolutely excited. Hope you don't mind the tank top, everybody. Sun's out, guns out, but also my AC doesn't work in my study. So I got to stay not too glazed for the night. I am so excited. We're going to get to all the reasons why as we get through the intros. But we have our first return guest tonight, Hanshi Legacy. And if you watched his last interview, you may have been as blown away as me by not just the stories, because stories are awesome, but the depth of the man behind the stories. And there was no way we couldn't have him back for another night. But I'm just going to jump right into my role at the beginning of each show, which is introducing one of my favorite people on the planet. This man is an 8th degree in sword work. He's a okay, I fucking didn't write this down tonight, Sensei Suino. Okay, 8th degree Iaido, 6th degree Judo, 5th degree Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir. You did well.
I talk too fast sometimes. The other thing, though, is, I always like to think of something specific instead of just giving a resume like that. And some of you know I love the jiu-jitsu. It took me years and years to get a blue belt. I started because of Sensei Suino, and this is a man who within about 10 minutes of standing in front of Hoist Gracie, the man who's probably why we even know the words jiu-jitsu outside of smaller martial arts circles, handed Sensei Suino a blue belt. How you doing tonight, Sensei Suino?
Doing great, man. It's so good to be here. Good to see you and everybody else. I, too, am super looking forward to this. I think we've said this, and we were saying it on the call before we let our guests in. Hanshi Legacy is the reason we know each other and we're all here. So we owe this show to our mutual connection through Hanshi Legacy. So it's definitely appropriate that you're back. My role, of course, is to introduce Sensei Randy Dauphin, who's a long-time friend, student, martial artist, multiple-time fighting champion, kata champion, just a superlative martial arts, somebody who lives and breathes Budo. We've introduced each other a number of times now. And to say something different, one of the things that I love about being part of this group is that Sensei Dauphin's family are people that I just absolutely love and have a ton of respect for. I've spent a lot of hours with his kids in the martial arts setting and just in a personal setting. And they are absolutely charming people, intelligent, and tougher than hell. So testament to you, not only have you managed to forge a life of greatness in the martial arts, but you've managed to leave a great legacy, word chosen intentionally, for the future with the seeds that you've planted in your kids. I can't wait to see how they turn out as adults. With that, I hand it over to you, Sir Randy.
Thanks so much, Sensei. So I love Sensei Suino. He is just awesome at everything that he does. And I could go on for a long time about him, but I have on all the other shows. And I want to encourage you to go back to some of those other shows on YouTube and look through it. Like, for example, I would encourage you to go back to the very first Kick, Punch, Choke Chat when Sensei Suino was the guest and decided that he liked it so much that he wanted to come on board here with us. And he's made it so much better. I watched a bunch of the episodes today, and I just find he just brings this this clarity and this intelligence to the topics that we discuss that I know that I don't bring. So I'm grateful for that. But the other thing that I want to do is I just want to mention Sean Benson, who doesn't get enough credit, doesn't have anybody introducing him every week. He introduces himself. And I just want to say, look, this guy doesn't need to do this. He does this because he loves hanging with all of us and he loves martial arts. Yeah. He's a shit hot, successful actor. He's a great musician. And he's a total badass martial artist. He's always being subservient and saying, oh, I'm the lowest ranking guy, but don't make any mistakes. If you find yourself standing across the ring from this guy, he's going to kick your ass if you don't take it serious because he's been training for a long time. So, and he's another one. He's a super intelligent guy. And when they say, you know, you are the sum of your 5 closest friends, well, 3 of them are on this call right now with me, and I feel pretty good about that. Like, I feel pretty good about being the sum of these 3 people on this call. So thanks so much, Sean, for doing this with us.
Thanks, Sensei.
Yes.
But tonight, I said, like, I'm always excited every week, and I feel like we're moving this in the right direction, where it's just turning into a chat where we're all riffing about stuff. With Sensei Legacy, I know that that's what it's going to be. It's so easy for me. We could do this show where I just talked about him. We could do an hour-and-a-half show where I just talked about Sensei Legacy. It would be no problem for me to do that. You know, he was born in New Brunswick, moved into Quebec. He's lived in Labrador, lived in Sarnia for a while, then went to London. Now he's located in St. Thomas. I always want to say the one thing about Sensei Legacy and I are lovers of the Montreal Canadiens. Sensei Legacy is a diehard Rocket Richard fan, and rightly so, as am I. I would say it's one of the very first things we started, besides karate, when I didn't know anything, but I did know something about Montreal. That's one of the things that we started talking about a lot when I was a white belt and a yellow belt. He was the 1975 Canadian black belt Kumite champion, and when I won some different accolades in competing, he was really proud of me and said, you know, Randy, when I was coming up, this didn't even exist. Like, there wasn't even the potential to go do these things yet. So, but I will say that in 1975, he was the Canadian black belt Kumite champion. And if you go back and Google 1975, you're going to have some names pop up where you would not want to fight any of those people. So that was not an easy task to achieve that. He's also in the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame. I said this the last time, he's a leader of leaders, right? This is a person who leads many people who could easily go away and just do their own thing, but they choose to follow him and be in his fold. I've also said an amazing student. One of the things I've learned from Sensei Legacy is how to be a great student. When you watch him on the floor, he's always the best student on the floor. When he's in a seminar setting or learning from somebody, you know, he's a tireless teacher. This is something that he probably doesn't even know that he says, but when he's teaching kata, oftentimes he doesn't say just one more time. His thing is, we're going to do it just 3 more times, right? We're going to do this kata just 3 more times. Not one more time, 3 more times.
Just a bit.
He's a 10th degree black belt. I think he's the only 10th degree black belt that Sensei Anthony Sandoval has graded to a 10th dan. A student of Harold Warden. I always say a disciple of Benny Allen. Also a longtime 10-year student of Richard Kim, and an existing current student of Anthony Sandoval. But one of the things now that I want to bring out is that, you know, as a teacher, he stands apart. For me, I've been his student for 30 years. And when I think of my 30 years in martial arts, I think of all the most important things that have ever happened to me. And he's allowed a relationship to forge between a student and a sensei that I think is like, it doesn't exist all the time everywhere in dojos anymore, where people walk in and they say, hi, Sensei Frank, how's it going? Or hi, Bill, what's going on? And they do things like that. No, he maintains there's a classical atmosphere to Legacy Shorin-ryu, and there are standards here that he maintains. And I'm really grateful for that. In addition to being grateful for that, I think about all the things that have happened since I walked in the dojo when I was 18 years old at the University of Western Ontario. Since then, I got married, and he stood with me while I got married. And I bought my first house, and he came to my house and he helped me put a new roof on my house. And after that, I remember standing in the YWCA in St. Thomas and saying, he was standing like 4 steps up, and I said, Sensei, I'm going to be a dad. And he jumped off of the stairs into my arms, and he's now the godfather of all of my children. I can't go better to be to take care of my children if I was here. He's father of all of them. Every fight I was ever at, he was at. always coaching me, always supporting me if I won or if I lost. When I opened my dojo, he helped me with that. And then if you take it full circle, when my relationship ended, he gave me a room in his house and let me move in with him. And he took care of me through that situation as well. And so, you know, I guess the final thing I want to say is, oftentimes when people, they'll hear them say, oh, if you could train with this person, or if you could train with Miyagi, or you could train with Matsumura, who would you want to train with if you could train with anybody? And in my thinking, I always think I'm training with the guy. I'm training with the person. If I could train with any of those people, I would still be with the person that I'm with right now. He would still be my sensei. That's the one that I want. And I'm so happy that somehow life brought me into the dojo with Sensei Legacy. And even though my mom and dad are gone, I'm happy I got one parent left here looking out for me and taking care of me. Thanks, Sensei.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, Sensei Dauphin. So everybody, a couple housekeeping notes that I do each week. First off, Robert Schlumsky, who is our genius, who you don't get to see because he would distract from all of us, but he's running the show here technically. He just posted on the chat at the bottom of your screens that we're open for questions. So he will vet your questions. He'll pass them on to us if they're worthy, and then we'll pass them on to Hanshi Legacy. We welcome them. We can't wait to hear what you want to know, especially as Hanshi's a return guest. And by the way, it's so amazing that there's so many people logged on again, because I don't know if your night's anything like mine. It's beautiful out there, but I'd rather be in here having this conversation with y'all. The other thing is there might be some swearing. We might be checking our phones. Like Sensei Dauphin said, we're just hanging out at the coffee shop, shooting the shit, and we just get to do it with each other while you're watching. And that's actually our goal, is that we create that vibe so that you're sort of privy to a certain type of conversation. And so that's why we structure it this way. And that's why, again, if you're worried about tough language, call your pastor. And he'll give you some Hail Marys to clean out those ears of yours. Hanshi Legacy, how's it going? How are you this week?
Oh, I'm fine. Thanks. Thanks for having me back.
It's a no-brainer. We all love you. We all just can't wait to hear what you have to say tonight. I'm just going to jump right into some questions. And actually, a few of them came out of what Sensei Dauphin said. So first off, do you agree that you are a disciple of Benny Allen? And what do you consider a disciple to be? And how important is that in the martial arts?
Well, yes, I am. And it's very important in the martial arts because the disciples, or I guess it's sort of a take on Jesus and his followers. It is important. It's important that people are thinking in the same way and in the same direction. And that helps the art in itself. If everybody's just looking to make themselves better, and then the art will start to lose. Will start to get not in such a good situation. But I think that the more good followers that you have, they will pour part of themselves, like Benny Allen did, to make the art what it is today.
And look, I know you don't love questions like this, but Sensei Dauphin accurately described you as a leader of leaders. Your black belts stay. Your 6th, your 7th, your 8th dans stay. They could go open their own schools. They stay. Of course, a couple have gone on, but for the most part, the people who don't stick with you, for the most part, fade away. What do you offer, if you could think about it, or what do they offer, and what's the circle that makes such high-ranking belts run their schools in separate towns but keep training with you?
Well, I sort of got lost on that question, Sean. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Hanshi. I talk a lot. Basically, what do you think it is that makes you a leader of leaders, even though I know you hate such questions?
Okay, I think it's part of it. I think my students see it as, it's not so much myself, because it's the art, right? And they need to, my students need real karate. They don't want, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone, but they don't want that 11-year-old black belt, and they want to be real karate people, you know. So I think that that's basically what we have to offer. We have to look, karate was not born in a gym. Karate was born in the street. It was a street level military art, and that's where it belongs. It doesn't belong. It's a fighting art. While kata, you cannot omit kata from karate. Karate is a very good and useful weapon, or kata, I mean, but it's a fighting art. If you don't fight, I think you're skirting the edges of real karate.
So actually, we just got a question that fits this perfectly, and you can expand on this or basically just say yes or no. But from Josh Hanley, he said, can you be a good fighter without experiencing a real fight?
You can if you win all your fights. I mean, I'd have to say no. You know, it's like you can learn a lot of different things about cars or motorcycles, but if you don't ride them, you know, you're not going to be a good rider, because different things happen than you expect when you're just doing classical karate. You have someone standing there looking to knock you out. They're feeling the same way as you are. One of you is not going to win. Somebody gets disappointed. The only thing that's going to make you better than the other person, there's only one word. You all know what it is. That's training. You've got to train, and you've got to do real training. Because I'm going to tell you right now, when you face someone who's maybe holding a baseball bat and he wants to take your life, you better have good training. It takes a lot of nerve to stand there. Richard Kim used to call it standing in the eye of the tornado. While everything else is going crazy around you, you have to be calm and take care of business.
And
so
I think you answered that, but you know, I've mentioned in the past, and I know you have as well as some of the other masters, that fear is a real part of the game for some people.
Oh, yeah.
So that's training that counteracts it, right? Because you're not going to feel it, but would you say it's the training that makes it not run the show?
Well, the other part I would say to add to that is sometimes when you're fighting, as we all know, it's not always pull the punch. It gets a bit rough in there. So I think from that slight or a little bit rough handling and contact like that, it accustoms you that when you're out in the street, if you get hit, that you don't give up. I've seen fights where people get hit and the fight's over. They've never been hit before, so they sort of panic. But I always find the best fighters are tough guys who can take it before it's their turn to apply their technique to somebody else, you know, like
I know.
make contact.
Yeah, you taught Sensei Dauphin this, I believe, and he's told me 100 times, and I've applied it to everything. But if you want to be a fighter, you got to fight, is what I've heard in our club.
Makes sense. Makes sense, sir.
I want to ask a question about teaching and students, because, you know, we were talking before the show started, and Sensei Dauphin brought up the idea that some people, you know, Sensei Freeze had mentioned not knowing how to approach you. So we're not talking about you specifically, although we kind of are, but what do you look for in a student? What makes a great student? And if somebody's watching and is like, God, I'd love to train with Hanshi Legacy or someone like a Hanshi Legacy and doesn't know how to approach you, what makes a great student, and how does someone approach you to be a student?
Well, you have to come with an open mind. You know, I have a lot of students who come and I'm teaching them and they give me their opinion or they tell me about their experience. Well, that's cute and everything, but they have to take a serious attitude, whereas I don't even like people talking when I'm teaching. I went and taught seminars, and a couple of people start talking back there, and there's a couple hundred people in the place. I center them out. I just walk over and say to them, "You're not going to talk in my class, are you?" I'd stand right in front of them, and that sets a tone for the whole thing. I'm a serious karate teacher. I need every second of my time and your time to make you the best that you can be. We don't have time for, if you already knew how to do it, you wouldn't have came. So.
And how would someone get?
How would somebody approach me?
Yeah.
If you look at Randy Dauphin, Sensei Dauphin's chest there. He has a T-shirt on. And, yeah, Matsumura Hakutsuru-kan. It's an association that I have for people who would like to be graded or would learn some, would like to learn some martial art, either Shorin-ryu karate or even Iaido and White Crane. And we have a very solid body of masters in those styles. And we would like to maybe make this association grow a little bit. And with that, they could just either call me or just punch in Legacy Karate Schools or Legacy Shorin Karate Jutsu and just send me an email, and I will contact them and see what we can do as a group.
Awesome. And one of the things that I was like, fuck, as we were looking at the time last time you were on, we just got to Hanshi Sandoval right near the end of the interview. So I actually want to throw this to Sensei Dauphin, who's got the Hakutsuru shirt, because I know you wanted to talk about your White Crane training and that relationship a little more. And I'd love for Sensei Dauphin to take the reins on that for a sec.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting. When I started in Legacy Shorin as a white belt, I remember Sensei Legacy talking all the time about White Crane, but of course I just wanted to do karate. And even when he would talk about Benny Allen, he would often talk about him looking like a bird or looking like a crane, the way he would stand. And I just kind of knew that Sensei Legacy was on the hunt for this. Like I knew from the second that I came to the dojo that Sensei Legacy was on the hunt for this system, which was somehow connected to Matsumura. But at that time, I wasn't really sure how it was connected. And I wasn't in a position to really even question that. But Sensei, I know you went through a number of big name instructors. Like there are a number of names that you moved your way through before you arrived at Sensei Sandoval. And I guess, what was the difference between the other people and Sensei Sandoval when you got there? And why is it today that you're still with him, training with him, following him, teaching his way?
Well, besides being amazing martial artist, he knew the exact style that I was looking for. When I initially went out to look for the White Crane, I didn't know much about it. Great martial artist from Long Island, New York, Terry Macaron. I was a bit frustrated when I arrived at my fourth dan, and that was the end of the program. There were 6 more dans, and I asked him. I said, "Look, what happens after? What am I supposed to do after I'm a fourth dan? Have all the katas from my style?" He says, to make a long story short, he told me that I was looking for Matsumura Hakutsuru, Matsumura's White Crane. So I started on a bit of an adventure. The United States is a great, great place to pick up martial arts because of all the Marines and everything that go off to different countries. So I got lost there a little bit.
So Sensei, maybe you should just go into when you showed up to Florida that first time and you're a 5th degree black belt and your very first introduction to Sensei Sandoval.
Yeah, so I went to a seminar and there were about 35 red and white belts there, and Sensei Sandoval was teaching that seminar. So after that, he invited, I asked him if he would show me the White Crane I was looking for. I told him I was looking for Matsumura's crane. He actually tried to talk me into Matayoshi or the Kojo brothers' White Crane, because he said that Matsumura's White Crane was not a major style. It was a minor style because it was an attachment onto Seito-ryu or Shorin-ryu karate. So after showing me the other styles, I insisted that I wanted to learn Matsumura Hakutsuru. And I was wondering if he could show it to me, because all the other big names couldn't do it. They could not do it. They said they knew it. I said, do a kata. They couldn't do it. So he took me back to his hotel room, and moved all the furniture back, made a an arena, makeshift arena. And he started doing the white crane. He just did it all right there. Any bunk I asked him about, he produced it. So I looked at him and I asked him, I said, would you accept me in my schools as your student? And Matsumura Hatsuru. And he's a very quiet, unassuming guy. He just nodded his head like that. And I was in. We have a great relationship. He's a great martial artist, and very, very intelligent. Very intelligent.
You know, Sensei, I want to just mention that I think one of the good things for you and for all of us was that just the I don't know, the training mentality of Legacy Shredder when Sensei Sandoval, who had been living in Okinawa as a Marine for 18 years, we were able, just so people on the call can understand, Sensei Legacy was able to have Sensei Sandoval to Canada like once a month or every other month for like a number of years he was here. And we would have a seminar that would be 2 or 3 days long where he would teach for 2 or 3 hours. And when those seminars were done, Sensei Sandoval wasn't staying in a hotel room. He was staying in Sensei Legacy's home with him. And they were doing extra training and more discussion on white crane. And I just think it's really important for people to get that insight on how this happened. It wasn't like, you know, you went to a seminar with Sensei Legacy for one weekend in a tent, and now you're promoting yourself as a white crane master somewhere, and you learned this. This was real learning. Like a bunch of us also, a number of times, Sensei Legacy took a bunch of us to Minnesota a number of times. We went to different places, Kentucky a number of times, North Carolina more than one time. This is an ongoing and regular training, not a fly-by-night here and there in a seminar type of an environment.
Another thing I'd like to add, maybe, which might give everybody a bit of an insight, probably why I am a 10th Dan. I've been thinking about it. It's a Matsumura Hakutsuru is a minor style. Not many people are going to be drawn to something like that. So I'm thinking that Master Sandoval, knowing that style, may have been looking for someone to sort of head that department, maybe after he's no longer in martial arts or something like that. So I thought maybe that was pretty easy for me to be a 10th Dan of a style that was a minor style like that. And maybe they needed a 10th Dan. And that was probably the reason that he graded me, because I really wanted to be a Matsumura Hakutsuru practitioner.
I don't want to be contrary, Sensei, but I don't think that's why he graded you to be 10th Dan. Sensei, so, you know,
actually, I think that's true. I really do think that could be a possibility.
Okay. Well, let's hear what Sensei Suino has to say about that. If Sensei Legacy is not a 10th Dan, who are the people that should be 10th Dans in karate?
Oh my gosh. I'm not going anywhere near that question. I don't know. I've been in the room when Hanshi's taught some white crane techniques. I've seen the evolution. I've been a distant cousin in the Legacy family tree since the whole odyssey started, right, toward white crane, and saw the development. I've been a recipient of some white crane techniques on my forearms and shins, and seen it happen. I just and I also met some of us are born to do certain things better than other people, and anybody that's met Hanshi Legacy in person and seen his hands knows that he was born to do white crane unlike anybody else on the planet. He just meant for this. It was one of those fateful martial arts confluences when two people come together. There's nobody else that should have been in that position.
I love listening to this. I have a question before we get to a few questions, Hanshi. And this is actually sort of a personal question. You know, I'm lucky enough, and I've talked about this on the show, to have sat in the back seat while you and Sensei Dauphin, and I want to talk about your relationship a little later, but I've been lucky enough to sit in the back of that car for easily hundreds of hours, especially when I was sort of like purple, brown, black belt, like just learning what the world really looked like. Did you ever have a situation in your martial arts career where you got to be a fly on the wall while other higher ranks, you got to pick up so much shit from them, but you didn't you got to be that lucky watcher? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, yes, Bob Dalgleish, Wally Slokey, Betty Allen, my teacher. He once lived with me, and people would call him, come and visit him, or he'd go to talk to important people in the martial arts, and I was just, you know, a common black belt. And he would bring me along. I would just stand there and watch him. He was he was an awesome person to watch. I see him throw punches, and his t-shirt sleeve would crack, would just snap out there. You could see the power running down his arm. And you want to do that, right? You want to do that because you look at yourself and you're doing inferior karate. What you are is like a statue or something that is not alive. Ben Yang was alive with martial arts. It flowed in him. When he hit you with all of martial arts.
So a question from Mike Russell. So we've all referred to you as a deep thinker. You can take that or leave it, but yes, you are. What is your idea of deep training and deep thinking in martial arts, and how do you practice depth?
You have to have an instructor. You must have an instructor who already knows the way where you're going. Like I'm a 10th Dan, I'm 74 years old, and I have an instructor, right? You have to have an instructor. It's like a lake needs a river to feed it and a river to clean it out. It just does. It does. And again, I said this before, none of you, or including myself, none of us will ever get the secrets of martial arts ever unless you train hard. It doesn't come any other way. It is the only possible way for you to get the feeling and the answers from martial arts. Your sensei will tell you, you think you understand, but you never will. I guarantee it, you never will unless you give up your body, mind, and spirit to the martial arts. 90%, 95% of the people doing martial arts today are not doing it right. I'm sorry, but they're not. And that's why people are running around with children as black belts. And I said this again, just for people who are listening who really don't know. Let me tell you the difference. If you had a 12-year-old daughter who had a black belt and you're all sleeping at nighttime and somebody broke into your house, would you send your 12-year-old daughter downstairs to protect you, or would you go yourself? If a person is a black belt, they should be able to go down and handle that situation. That's what martial arts is. It's more than that. But on the lower part, on the beginning part, you have to get yourself in condition to be able to meditate in a certain condition. Therefore, if you can't reach that condition, you will never reap all the fruits of the martial arts.
So can I expand on this with you? Because I love what you're saying, and I obviously agree. What about what you just called, you described yourself a bit ago as like your garden variety, average black belt. You hadn't elevated yet. So there's more of those than there are 13-year-old girls running around. So what about the guys out there? He's 35. He's an okay black belt. He's one of the 95%. What would you say to that person? Like, what do they have to do tomorrow or next year? What are they missing?
Well, again, another way of looking at different people training is, let's talk about math, okay? I'm not very good at math. In martial art, if you're doing math and you want to know, where you stand in math, you write an exam. You write an exam, you get your mark. That's what you are. That's just what you are. In martial arts, when you go in there, your exam is being written every second that you're on the floor. You're writing your exam. And you're only going to be able to produce what you are. And that's the unfortunate thing about martial arts is everybody thinks they can be 10th dans. Everybody thinks they can be a black belt. Everybody thinks they can be a brown belt. I won't go any further than that, but not everybody can. They just can't. They don't have that makeup.
Sensei, maybe talk about the requirements to be a black belt in Legacy Shorin-ryu, the Shodan testing, why you came up with it that way, and what you think that produces from a student the day after they've been graded to that grading, through that grading. I'm
not following you on what you're asking me.
So our recommendation to Shodan, I consider to be a fairly extreme situation for a person to go through, and what you're talking about, the testing of what you are. Why did you come, maybe talk about a little bit about what you make people do in Legacy Shorin-ryu to get a black belt and why you do that.
Yeah, well, we lock the doors. We don't allow any parents or anybody in, only martial artists. And all the black belts in our dojos, and they come in and they answer history questions. They do their katas, they do bunkai. And then at the end, they have to fight, like everybody in the room. I believe Randy fought 22 people at the time at his grading. Am I right? So 20.
That's right. Yeah, 22.
22. And then, and then after that, we make them fight 2 people. And then after that, we make them fight in a gang riot type situation where every man is for himself, and you have 7 or 8 or 10 people in the fight, so that you're actually confronted with situations that may happen to you on the street. You never really know what's going to happen, so you have to create some scenario. And they're pretty brutal, the fights. That's why we don't allow anybody in, but not to the point of being dangerous or anybody's going to get sent to the hospital or anything like that. But you got to be tough. You got to be tough. You want to be a martial artist, you got to be tough.
Yeah, for me, Sensei, one of the values of that and Sensei Benson has gone through that grading too. I remember him doing his recommendation at Sensei Byron's club, and when we were taking him down there, him saying, after the grading, I want you to drop me off at this club. And I said, okay, I'll do that, but just know you could come back to my house and sleep on my couch if you want to. And I just remember at the end of that recommendation, Sensei Byron was in the shower, like kicking Sean, saying, we have to go. You have to get up off the floor because they're going to lock the YMCA up and we need to go home. And I remember when Sean got in the car next to me saying, okay, what club am I dropping you off at? And he said, I think I'll just go to your house and sleep on your couch, Sensei. But, Sensei, I guess one of the things, the value of that for me is I remember after that grading, the next time I had to fight in the dojo, and I only had to fight 1 or 2 people, it was an entirely different mental situation than having to walk in a room and knowing everybody in that room was going to have a crack at me. They were all going to have a crack at me, and I was going to get tired, and I was going to do okay for a little while, but in the end, they were all going to get me. They were all going to be getting better than what I was going to be able to give them.
Yeah, it's a bit of a threshold that you're going over there. Yeah.
One of the things too for me, like that, he's describing that accurately. I mean, I could barely move after that, and because the reason I was going to stay in London was because we had a seminar with Sensei Sandoval. I remember this so well. We were doing Aku no Aku, the bow kata, and I was standing there with the bow. My ribs were fucking knackered. My feet were knackered. My hands were knackered. My face was knackered, and he just looked at me, he's like, what's with him? And then you, Sensei Dauphin, said something like he had his black belt recommendation last night. And he just gave me that look of like, nice. And in that moment, like the idea that there'd have been, I don't know, in the real world, a lot of reasons not to go do anything the next morning. But instead it was like, okay, let's just go do some more of this stuff we call martial arts the next day. So it wasn't just the physical, it was the self-esteem that, you know, that's as bad as it gets. That hurt, but it's not bad. Question from Justin Shea, because White Crane is such a deceptively soft style, was there any discord when you first tried to incorporate it into the legacy Shorin system?
Have you ever been hit by a wave, Sean, on the beach?
I have many
Have
times.
you ever been hit? Okay. At what point is that wave hard? It's never hard. It's soft. It's water. It's in the delivery, right? White Crane is very, very deadly and very, very, when you hit, it's very, very devastating, very hard techniques. And what's happening there really, when you take White Crane, is, according to my sensei, I shouldn't teach the White Crane really to anyone after they're black belts, because the techniques are so dangerous that, you know, like if you teach it to like maybe a green belt or a brown belt or something like that, and they'll want to try it on somebody and end up having somebody lose the movement in their arm or something, because White Crane is severing nerves, right? Karate, you knock them out. You turn the computers off, you know, you push their brain up against the cranium a little bit and they pass out. But in White Crane, you're severing their nerve. So if I can draw a little bit of a picture, an image for the lesser knowledgeable people, if you have a lamp and you break the light bulb, you can just change it. But if you cut the cord, it's a bigger problem. It's a bigger problem. And you know, from car accidents and people get their nerves severed, it's not good, right? Sometimes they can't walk. So that's how dangerous it is. So they don't want us to teach it to anyone who's not at least a second dan. But it is a deadly, and it is the second part of your karate. Like Goju-Ryu people there, like Adet, I see is out there. Like the Goju-Ryu people have their own crane. Goju means hard, soft. So, and you see Yamaguchi sometimes, Gogen Yamaguchi and a nice Sikudachi and doing a crane pose. So most arts do have it, but the Shorin-Ryu style right now is missing it because people are not putting the White Crane on the end of their Shorin-Ryu or their Seito-Ryu. And I am open to teaching this to instructors. I would even challenge Shotokan instructors to try suiting maybe like the great Cesar Bukowski, because he has a lot of people believe in him. If he was to maybe have a look at this, which the forerunner of Shotokan was of course Shorin-Ryu, if it may not fit in the end of Shotokan. And because when I learned the White Crane from Sensei Sandoval, it at least doubled the knowledge, techniques, and understanding of what I was doing, at least. Because there were some things, you know, like even doing this, you know, salutations and stuff, and some bunkai were completely wrong or completely now clear as to what they really were. They were hidden. They were hidden. They didn't want other martial artists to pick it up. They wanted the family to keep this so they could, if they got challenged, they had these secret techniques that would, listen to this, destroy karate. The White Crane was formulated to destroy karate people, because Matsumura was teaching Shorin-Ryu karate in Okinawa. And then he had students like Itosu, and other students got to be really good and sort of leaned on his greatness. So he had to figure out something for his family to be able to defend against anyone who would challenged, the great name of the Matsumura family. So he invented Shorin-ryu, and I will show you how you can destroy karate with white crane.
I mean, I'm just forgetting, Hanshi, because I just joined with you after when I met you, you were a fifth dan, but the idea to me is so foreign that you would hit a third dan and not have anything next, or hit your fourth and not have anything next. And, remembering that story really inspires me, because one thing Sensei Dauphin and I were talking about is him and Scott Watson were coming down to meet you and Sensei Sandoval and the gang in Minneapolis to do crane. And on the road trip, we were just like, we've won the fucking lottery. We got Sensei Sandoval, Sensei Legacy. And what I was saying to Sensei Dauphin earlier is, yeah, and I'm even luckier because I get him too. But you didn't have that when you were like, you didn't hit your third dan and then have this whole crane system in front of you. You hit sort of graduating from your third dan and we're like, what the fuck's next? Anyways, I'm just saying that out loud for myself because I know a lot of people listening are probably hitting those ranks where your system's done. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just feel lucky about it. And that's something Sensei Dauphin and I were talking about earlier today.
Yeah, it was stuff. Keep hunting. And if you're the right person, things will happen if they're supposed to. If you give up, things never happen. If you just keep looking, you can find it. Or if you're not meant to be that person, you won't.
Sensei Dauphin?
So Sensei Legacy, one of the things that Sensei Sandoval often said though, is you have to have a base of something before you do the white crane. You have to, and not only because it's dangerous, but in my mind, I'm asking this as a question for you to correct me if I'm wrong, as much as if you took a person in karate and took them to a brown belt, or let's not even say a brown belt, let's say a green belt level in karate, and then you just taught somebody purely white crane, they learn no basics or anything, and you made those two people fight, how do you think that would go for the person? And
no, I'm sorry.
No. So, and then just that concept that you and I have talked about, which is white crane is like the poison on the tip of the spear, but you better have a spear too.
Yeah. In order to be able to do white crane, you have to be a black belt because there are attributes there are different attributes, right? Like being calm, like what Richard Kim said, standing in the eye of the tornado. In white crane, let's look at white crane as, in this technique, you're going to stick your finger in the person's eye, so you have to be calm enough to wait for that person to make the move yourself to a different place, stop them, and then stick your finger in their eye. So you have to be a bit of an educated fighter in order to be able to have the nerve to stand there and understand what's going on in order to touch the person in the eye. So there are a lot of things that you need from karate in order to make you a good white craner. You have to have karate, but it is a bit of an advanced and a bit of a martial art for an advanced person like myself, because you don't have to hit hard, you just have to hit in the right places, but you do need the experience to be able to deliver, right? Because you're going from being able to use your big fist, punch anybody anywhere in the body or in the face, to taking your finger and hitting something the size of a nerve. Yeah. So it's a different art, but you really, really need to be a black belt.
Question for Luis David Munoz. From your experience, dividing it roughly, white crane being more Chinese style and karate more Okinawan, what do you think the biggest thing the Okinawan arts have overlooked from the Chinese origins or arts, if anything?
In my personal opinion, because of, I don't think they have overlooked what they've done. The thing about the Chinese arts, they're so big and so hard to master, whereas the Okinawans made it their martial art easier to learn, faster to learn, because they were in the very day, the very hour, the very second defending their lives. They had to learn it, right? So they cut out the fancy stuff that you didn't need and just went into the linear type striking. And I would have to say that there, just to mention it, I'm in agreement with Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee himself made this statement that these are my own words. Everyone knows that the best striking is linear striking, right? Straight in, torquing the punch on the end, etc.
Yeah. So you think they took what worked best and ran with it pretty well?
I would have to say yes, it is the best. In my opinion, it is the best karate, or I would be doing what I believe is the best karate. Nothing beats Shorin-ryu and karate. Nothing.
Why I always say, Sean, if you don't think this is the best one, why would you come to the third best one? Why wouldn't you go find the one that you think is the best and master that? Like, it makes no sense. Of course, everybody thinks what they're doing is the best, but I agree, obviously, with Sensei Legacy.
Right.
What you have to realize here is that we're talking about the best karate, empty hands, martial arts. This is fighting on the street. This is not who's the best guy in the ring with a referee, and MMA is a good part of that now, so to speak. You know, before I've had persons, and I'm not going to mention any styles or anything, saying, oh, well, you know, this is better than your style, this is better than this. Well, my friends, look at MMA. Where is everybody now? Who is in there knocking the other person out? Who is it? Karate. Where are the other guys? They're karate guys and jiu-jitsu, right? Because they were forged by the military on the streets, and you took other people's lives with it. They didn't use the fancy little phony techniques. They used all the real ones. And not so many guys who were great martial artists playing the point game are in the MMA now. Right? Karate and jiu-jitsu.
I remember you saying that to me once, Sensei, I want everybody to know, I don't think you were being boastful about this, but it was after a black belt tournament, and I think I actually won it. Like, I think I won the tournament, and I remember leaving with you, and I remember you saying, and we were just talking about karate, and you were very happy for me that I won, but I remember you saying, if I had to fight any of those competitors in the dojo, I would beat all of them. And I just remember thinking, that's right. I remember thinking that's right. Like, having spent as much time with you on the dojo floor, it is a different world alone on the dojo floor or out on the sidewalk than it is in a ring where there are 5 people to save you or a referee to stop and pull the person off of you. Those are different worlds. You know, if you haven't done this before, I would say it's when you're a shodan or a nidan, and I did this for, I don't know, since probably over 15 or 20 years. I drove down every Saturday morning, and we would go fight every Saturday morning. We would go and fight. In the beginning, I was afraid. Like, you're afraid. There's nobody in there to save you. There's nobody in the dojo. Nobody except for me and Sensei Legacy. Nobody. And when you fight with somebody alone, you don't know what's going to happen. People can lose their temper. People like get irritated by what's going on. You don't know what's going to happen. There's no referee there to save you. It is a different world. So I don't think you were being boastful, Sensei, but I just remember at the time thinking,
it was because, I think it was because I could see that they were gym trained. You know, they were trained for scoring a point. You know, and there's a lot of good point scorers that are really good martial artists. They just like the game. But it must have been just in that instance that those people were probably not, you know, they were probably just in the sport aspect of it. And I was saying that if they crossed over to the other side, I might be able to beat it. Well,
Sensei, I will also say that most of us were like 23 or 24. fighting there, 25 years old, and you were a full grown man at the time. And you were already a 6th or 7th degree black belt. You were a 6th or 7th degree black belt. And I think of myself, I've said this to Benson before. If I had to fight the 25-year-old me today, like if me, Randy Dauphin, the 48-year-old Randy Dauphin had to fight the 25-year-old Randy Dauphin, it'd be the same thing that you just said. So I'd run through that guy so easy. Like it wouldn't even be a fight.
I want to pop over to you, Sensei Suino, because when Sensei Legacy was talking about the like day-to-day, like why the Okinawans honed down what they took from the Chinese arts in their own thing, I really saw you nodding along with that. And then talking about the MMA, how it's honed but basically jiu-jitsu honed by warriors, obviously the Japanese jiu-jitsu going back to the samurai. I just saw you really getting with that. Any thoughts or ideas you want to jump in with there?
I got kind of a two thoughts on that, and it's kind of inspired by Sensei Copeland, who's on the call again. So let me get to his question second. My question is, you've talked about, Hanshi, you've talked about, people who train in sport karate, people who train in serious karate. Over the years, there got to be people that come to you to want to learn what you teach. And not every one of them is qualified to do it. And I don't mean they can't do it physically. I mean, have you encountered situations where someone says, hey, I want to learn karate from you, and you've realized they're just not the right people for the job?
Yes, that happens, but that doesn't allow you not to do your job. Your job is to try your best to make them that way. What you will do is make them better, or what I will do is make them better. They will not be as good as, say, someone else, but will still be able to do the job better, or at least have some type of understanding of them getting themselves in a situation, what to do or how to do it. You've got to be told something. You have to keep yourself informed if you want to do something like that, defend yourself. So you go to somebody like myself or yourself, and you do your best with them, and then they reach their peak. They certainly won't reach maybe your peak, but they will reach theirs, and you'll make them a better person for it. We are, samurai means manservant. You and I are manservants. We're here to serve and make the other person a better person. And by the way, Sensei Suino is my teacher, one great martial artist.
So on the character side of that, so Sensei Copeland asked, have you ever expelled a student that you've devoted a lot of attention and energy to? And if you did, how did you go about doing it?
Yes, I did. I did it. I just simply told him that I didn't want to see him for a year, because he took a set of nunchakus, crossed his arms, put it over a guy's head, and started to choke him in my dojo. And I just said, put those down, take your uniform off, and come into my office. When I came into the office, I told him, I'm expelling you for a year. If I ever hear that you've been doing martial arts anywhere or touch any type of weapons, you will never come back. That guy never did anything. He waited for a year. On that day, he came back. So you have to do it, and I have to do it. And I don't do it for Legacy Shorin-ryu. I do it for Shorin-ryu. I do it for the martial art. Some of us can't do it always for yourself. You get past yourself, and then you start thinking about the art. And it's funny, but Randy, I think, is the guy who really made me aware of it, is that today I'm taking Matsumura's place. And you're taking Yamaguchi's place. And someday Randy will take my place.
A long time from now.
Yeah, we are it. So if we fail, Nick, if you and I fail, martial arts fails. We can't do that to it, because did so much for us, right? I don't know about you, but it did a lot for me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's the reason I'm here. And, you know, it's a living art form. It lives through the people who practice it and teach it.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And today it's us. We're the cloth that martial arts is cut from, and it's a bit egotistical, but more humbling, I think.
I once,
You know, sorry, Setsuna, I just
Yeah.
wanted to interject one thing about the two of you that occurred to me that I've known, but at my last grading with you, Setsuna, or any of my gradings with Sense of Legacy, I know if I didn't meet the standard, regardless of how much the two of you care about me, love me, want to be around me, I know you'd both fail me. You would both fail me. You would both say, go back and do it again. That's what students need, is teachers like that. That's what keeps the art moving forward, is people who maintain the high standards like the two of you. At my third Dan grading, you said, pick 6 cuts, Randy, and do those cuts. I practiced those cuts every single day, 10 times a day, because I knew if I didn't meet the standard, I would fail. I've seen Sense of Legacy fail people at their black belt grading 5 minutes before the end. Robert Schlumsky on this call broke a kid's ribs, and I'm not going to name that kid's name, but Sense of Legacy said to him, are you going to fight? You need to come in here and fight. And he said, I can't, I'm hurt. And Sense said, well, if you can't fight, you're going to fail. And he said, well, I can't fail. I can't fight. He didn't get his belt. He failed. That's it. And after, when I went in the office with Sense of Legacy, he said, you know, if he would have just stood on the line, if he would have just come out and stood on the line and trusted me, I would have stopped the grading and he would not even have to have thrown another punch. Martial arts needs more teachers like that. Not guppy stripes, not guppy stripes, and everybody gets a belt and all that kind of stuff.
You know, I just want to chip in on the idea about how we're it, like, and you know, the egoless way that I think about that. And it goes to something Sensei Dauphin said to me and to many of his students that I try and pass on to my students, which is just, if I'm being, let's say, kata alone in a park, what if that's somebody's first time seeing karate? What if that's what they see as karate? And I don't have to go full throttle, but I have to be training full throttle, whatever it is that I'm training that day. And I love that. And I try and impart that to my students. Like, if somebody watches you in the park today, do they go, holy shit, what is that? That is fully engaged and amazing, even if it's just working a slow or simple move? Or do they go, that looks like McDojo ass bullshit? And I just really, really like that idea, because it makes it not about me, but it also lets me be the guy who might be the reason someone takes karate. Yeah. We're not at the end, but fucking time is flying. I've written 10 new questions for you, Hanshi.
Ooh.
Now, because we're here again, you've done the lightning round, we'll call it. So I'm gonna crack, you can take a little more time to answer these if you want, or you can answer them simply and it'll springboard us in. I'm all excited and I'm a little bit nervous because, you know, I had to come up with 10 new questions and the others were working so well. You ready, Hanshi, for the 10 new questions?
All right.
Okay. If you could give your 25-year-old self advice, what would it be?
That was such a grow up, become a man. Yeah.
Best fight you've ever had and why?
Billy Hines. We fought for a championship. He was my senior. I had just been a showdan. He was a third dan. We were all scared of him. Like, he was like the Tasmanian devil. We went into 3 overtime periods. I ripped his pants off. It was like a wild fight. And in the end, because he was at that time smarter than I was, we were fighting at a very, very, very accelerated speed. and he was really a fast guy. And we ended up tied. And we went into 3 overtime periods. And he threw what I thought was going to be a blistering punch at me. And I blocked and countered as fast as I could. When his punch got halfway there, he stopped it. My hand went by, and then he just reached out, touched my chest very gently with his fist. And it was like the moment stopped for me. My mouth just dropped open. And I went, it was over. Like, he just outsmarted me, was all it was. But it was the best fight I ever had. And I love Billy Hine.
Worst fight you've ever had, and why?
The worst fight I've ever had? I haven't had any worst fights. I loved all my fights. The ones I won, the ones I lost. I love to fight. I do. 74, and we can meet after this. I love fighting. For me, it's like a sport. It's fun, but it's not a sport. Don't let that word fool you.
What living martial artist would you most like to meet, and what would you want to train with them?
I think I'm going to step out of it a little bit, and I would say Gracie, because I know nothing about jiu-jitsu, but I wouldn't want anybody, one of those guys, to get a hold of me. So out of respect, out of wanting to learn something, I think maybe Gracie, just to learn. Yeah.
What's your favorite seminar you've attended?
Sandoval, all his seminars were the best.
You can use your imagination. You can be specific. Best fighter who ever lived.
Karate fighter or any fighter?
Any fighter.
There are several there. I'm going to say Ali, because Ali is like the Montreal Canadiens to me, right? But I'm going to tell you something. I would take anybody else's 5 punches as long as I never had to stand in front of Mike Tyson. I seen that guy punch a guy in the chest with a 16-ounce glove, and the guy went out between the ropes and landed on the cement floor. Like, if you don't think that's power with that 16-ounce glove on, like, wow. That guy scared me, and I watched him on TV.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you said Muhammad Ali, Sensei, because I wanted to actually talk to you about it. I wrote it down here, like, let's talk about Muhammad Ali. So I'm so happy that came up.
Yeah, okay.
What if you could kneel before one dead martial artist and ask them to train you? Who would it be and why?
It would be a Matsumura. It's obvious.
Yeah.
Everyone here who is a martial artist can trace the roots to Matsumura. It's like there's China, then it comes to a very, very narrow passage into Okinawa, then out to the rest of the world, right? So everyone here at some point who did the martial arts that came like after Matsumura's time are related to Matsumura. Goju-ryu, the students, Kanryo Higashiona, for instance, was a student of Matsumura's, and then he went to China and learned, came back and taught Miyagi Chojin, right? Mm-hmm. So Matsumura is the man.
If you could take a time machine 100 years in the future, what one thing would you pray to God every single martial artist has?
Roots, going back, bringing everything forward. Guys like us who love karate and are not in it for the money, but guys who want to make karate better. People who realize that Matsumura and Itosu gave everything up they had to give it to us. Some of them their lives.
And my second last question, if martial arts didn't exist, there was just, you couldn't invent it, it doesn't exist, what other sport, religion, way of life would you want to have done?
That's a tough one. I don't know. it's never entered my mind because what I will tell you this is that for everyone out there, if you want to be a martial artist, you have to. I always said to myself, the day I walked into the dojo, I'm a karate guy. I'm a martial artist. I never said I was a plumber. I never said I was a priest. I never said I was a politician. No matter what I was doing at the time, my vision of myself was I'm a martial artist. I'm a karate guy. And I carried that through my whole life. And that's how I looked at it. So I felt like a bit of a sponge because I was looking to learn it. I want, like Conroy Copeland, what a great martial artist he is. There's a guy you want to be afraid of. He said it the same way.
My last question, who's your favorite student you've ever had and why is it Randy Dauphin?
You can just pass on that sensei.
Yeah, I'll just pass.
That's an awkward question.
I would, what you're saying maybe is, let's say we have a relationship like Bill Hind and Benny Allen. I'm the intermediate student of Benny Allen's. I love Benny Allen. I was around him since he became my teacher. I was always with him. But nobody can teach you Benny Allen's martial arts like Bill Hind. I put myself behind him. Yeah. Billy Hind is like, if you looked at him and you knew Benny Allen, you would see Bill Hind moves and lives like Benny Allen.
Sensei, your Muhammad Ali stuff.
No, it wasn't that. Sorry, Sensei, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No, I don't know what he's talking about.
Well, I mean, Sensei Dauphin, he had some questions about Muhammad Ali that he wanted to ask.
I didn't have questions. I just wrote his name down on a piece of paper here, knowing that it would be interesting to hear Sensei's thoughts on him. But before we talk about that, a couple of things. It's funny that the student thing came up because Sensei Copeland sent a message, Sensei Legacy, after I said the things that I said at the beginning, and he said, when you have a Sensei-student relationship like this, you don't need anything else. That's what Sensei Copeland said. So that feels pretty good. And while the Muhammad Ali thing might be fun to talk about, there's something that we would all be doing right now normally that we're not doing right now. I would normally be packing up shit and throwing it into the back of a truck, and Sensei would be packing up right now.
Oh, going to camp.
We would be getting food, and so Victoria Feth sent in a question, which is, she's asking you, Hanshi, what inspired you to start Camp Bushi? Like, why did you start Camp Bushi? And what do you miss most about it since it's not happening this summer?
Yeah, we have, we started in 71. We started camp in 71 and we've had, or 72, sorry. And we had it ever since. This year is the first year. The camp was started out for kids, just for a handful of kids that we had in St. Thomas. And Roger Helps at that time was the black belt helping me with the dojo, and he sort of started it, and it was just for Friday night, Saturday night. You would go home Sunday, and then adults and other schools started to show up to the camp. So we made it into a week thing so that people could come in. Like if you wanted to learn the 5 basic katas for which are exercises for the white crane. If you came to my camp for a week, I could teach you those 4, and you would have the basics, like the PNADs, for the white crane system, right? So we could do that in a week because we could train 3 or 4 times a day on katas and do it. So it was good for people who wanted compact training, you know, everything, try to get as much as they can in there in a certain amount of time.
Well, I can tell you the thing I'm missing about it most, Sensei, is spending the week with you. That's the thing I miss about it. I certainly have never laughed as much, learned as much, talked as much around a campfire, met as many young people, watched them grow up over 30 years. Man, Sensei, I think that camp is one of the greatest services you ever did for like hundreds and hundreds of people who grew up there and went on. It's funny, just yesterday, Sensei, I saw the Kabasa kids both, there was an Instagram post and they were sitting around a campfire and I put a quick message on there and I said, do you guys still have a kielbasa there? And they messaged me back and said, we do. It's just a thing. We still pull out the kielbasa at every campfire. So
yeah, it's pretty funny. Another thing I might be able to slide in here, I think that we just slid over Anthony Sandoval a little bit faster than we should. And he's my sensei. He's a 10th Dan. And I just wanted to say that if you're looking, well, you can't now because he's retired because of health problems from the war. But he is the guy that everybody says, well, I'm better than Sandoval. Or, and pardon me for just saying his name, I'm quoting, okay? Or, I'm as good as Sandoval. Or I learned from Sandoval. They always use him as to show where they are. You know what I mean? And when you use somebody like that, and he is the guy. He's the guy in the United States that if you're listening to me and you want to learn the white crane, I don't know if he will teach you now. I was lucky to get him myself, but he would have been the guy to see. Or what's Robert Rosario? Is that his name?
Rosario, yeah.
Rosario in the United States and Puerto Rico. Is it Puerto Rico?
He's in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Those guys are guys that you might want to get in touch with. And John Cox in Florida. Those guys are the guys in the United States if you're Americans. Americans is like a melting pot for martial arts. There are so many great martial artists there. And Canada is starting to catch up because you've allowed us, access to your martial arts. We appreciate it.
So Hanshi, I got a question. We always get so much into the fighting stuff. We're a really fight heavy club. It's one of the things we pride ourselves on. Dojos are opening back up with the COVID, and there's going to be a lot of no contact martial arts happening for the next little while. It's a good thing because it gets us in a room together and it gets us training. What advice would you give all the people who are going to be training at a distance for the next little while? What would you say to focus on? What would you say to like dig deep and find that'll either make you a better fighter when you can come back, or don't even worry about the fighting for now, it'll make you better at this?
That's a tough question for me to answer. Okay, I would just say that if you can't fight, like, it's going to be tough. You're going to get rusty. I would shadow box, do a lot of that. Try to block your punches in the mirror. You know what I mean? It's never going to happen. Just keep yourself tuned up. The knowledge, fighting, I'm going to use this, is like riding a bike. Once you learn how to fight, it's just, you never forget. You just get a little bit out of shape. If you keep yourself, your tools well-oiled and prepared, then you won't. Once you get that into your system, I think you may get rusty at it, but I don't think you'll ever forget it. So I would do kata. Kata is a tool that is for self-discovery. Teaches you a lot about yourself. So whilst you don't have the other person, use kata. Learn more about yourself. Learn more about what you can do better, more of what you can do that's not so good, and correct them or change them. And then when you have the other person, then you can learn more about them.
Right on. Sensei Suino, are you still doing jiu-jitsu? Or are you waiting to bring that back in the judo for the no-touch stuff? Is there a way to train those with?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have the same problem. We can do stepping, we can do theory, we can do fitness. We have to do it all by Zoom. We're not allowed to open yet. Or even when we do, we've got social distancing and masking we got to do. So our guys have been super creative. I try to do the same thing. I teach judo theory, jiu-jitsu theory, movement, fitness. That's what we can do right now.
Mhm.
That's the place to be in Michigan, is that Sensei Suino's dojo.
Thank you.
Top instruction for sure. I tell you what, I looked, and that was the dojo I personally chose to go to, Sensei Suino. When I was looking and I didn't have an instructor, that's where I went. Out of all the other places I could have went.
And Sensei
Thank
Dauphin, what's your main focus going to be for the next little while with your students?
No, there's me being me, and I'm going to do what I do. And you can read between the lines on that however you like. You know, if Sensei Legacy decided that he wanted to fight with me tomorrow and I got COVID from him, that would be a life well lived. And I would just consider it part of my life, the life that I'm living. But through this, Sean, the thing that, you know, I've tried to emphasize is on Zoom, just proper basics, proper structure, good stances, good chamber, good direction, not even sequencing, not even timing, just the very basic fundamentals, because then at least when you come back to the dojo, you're still in shape, you have good stances, and you can jump off from there, right? Just trying to keep people in a place where they can move forward. That's my focus, right? And keep the community going and the love going. That's my focus.
So that actually prompts a really interesting question I want to ask you, Hanshi. So, you know, for example, the lessons Sensei Dauphin is giving me right now are just what he said. Sometimes one move, one count. And I'm like, holy fuck, I've been doing this all wrong. And I want to ask you that. I don't mean like we're always a white belt. I mean, like, have you had periods in your 50 plus years where you went, shit, I've gathered too much steam in the wrong direction?
It's all discovery. You said it one way, I'm going to say it another. Yeah, sometimes you learn that this is not good for you or this is not what you want to do. Yeah, but that's part of learning as well. There's, you want to spend the time that you spend not so good learning. You know, like you can make mistakes. That's why we go to dojos and learn all the mistakes or do stuff that you didn't like so much, so that when, or if anything happens, or if you're ever in a situation, that you will be able to make the choice not to try that, not to use that. So if that's what you meant, everything, even negative, should be learned so that you know not to make that mistake or to get pulled down that road yourself.
And because we've been talking a lot tonight about the white crane, did you find that as you started to hone in, and I remember this period with you, but I was very new, so I didn't have the inside scoop. Were there people who were like, that ain't it, Sensei?
I had a student with me for 22 years, and he had a fairly good club, and I don't want to focus on him, but when I went to Sensei Sandoval and I told all my Yudansha that we are adding the white crane to our system, he just up and quit. He said, I'm not learning Kung Fu. And he just walked away. That person is actually a nice person. I don't know why they said something like that, but which leads to when people ride the ego thing, they think that they're always on top. They don't want to be learning. This person was a fourth dan and knew all the katas, but they were now in their minds a beginning of a master, and they didn't want to learn anything new. So things like that happen. You know, some of us are meant to be fourth dan. Some of us are meant to be sixth dans. Some are meant to be eighth dans. And very quietly, I'll say some of us are meant to be 10th dans. And that's just the way it is. I even have to accept being a 10th dan because I never asked anybody for it. Somebody put it on to me. So yeah. I do what my sensei says.
I can say that's the truth, Sensei. Actually, The thing that when Sensei Copeland was on the call, the thing that I went away, he said something that's very similar to what you often said and often say. He said, I never wanted to be a black belt. I wanted to learn how to fight.
Mm.
He said that. And I've thought about that a lot since he said that, because a lot of people join now because they want to be a black belt, right? They join and that's the goal, to be a black belt. You always said, always, to all of us, just keep your head down and keep doing your karate and the ranks will come. You don't need to worry about it. You just keep doing your karate and you'll eventually reach where you're supposed to be. It'll just come to you. You don't gotta go hunt it down. It'll come and find you. And I know you were never chasing down a sixth, a seventh. It just was always great being in the dojo doing karate with you, and it's still great. And that's, if there was an 11th Dan coming, it'd be coming your way.
No, God, don't even say that, please.
So actually, I want to expand on that just a hint, because one thing that, again, you taught Sensei Dauphin, he taught me, and he said to me really early on when it was just me and him, as long as you're honest with me, the karate will always take care of itself. Yeah. And I failed greatly for a while, but we got there. And I want to ask you your thoughts on, why does that matter? Why not just work hard in the dojo? Why does honesty matter?
Well, it's sort of related. You have to be honest with yourself, right? That's what gets you where you're going. Being honest with yourself. You can easily fool yourself. I don't know if you are aware of that or not, but a person can actually fool themselves. So if you keep yourself straight and honest, it's clean. That's what martial arts requires. Clean. You need to be clean. You need to be pure of mind. You can't go in with your ideas. You can't go in with bad ideas. Right? It says, what will I say? Karate is a Zen movement. It's pure. And that's why I hate today where people are, to be a martial artist in the old days was like honorable. It was like an honor. Look what they call Matsumura Bushi, right? Out of honor for being a real martial artist. What the hell has happened since? We got these little kids wearing black belts that depict you being a lethal, deadly martial artist that is, bred into this way of fighting. And they just don't, for some reason, they're playing games with it. They're wearing clown uniforms.
So that's one of the things that attracted me most at the beginning. And I want to ask you just about that. And then we'll have just a little bit of time to wind up for sure. But what is Zen in the martial arts? What does that mean?
Zen.
Zen.
Humans being, living for the moment. That's when you're doing kata, it will bring you to Zen. It will bring, because it's non-stationary meditation. It brings your body, mind, and spirit all working together. And then it becomes all under one mind. And next thing you know, you're just that being. When you go, you just boom, step into that focus. Everything becomes one. That's why you do your breath and you do your ki, which is like a high point. But that's what you're doing there. It's non-stationary meditation. You're looking out about 8 feet. Your mind is got complete rest, and you let your body create the art. The art comes from your mind, but your body is the part that's actually doing the art, the visual part of Zen.
Thanks, Hanshi. And I like to say this now and then, but if you're watching this and that doesn't make you want to go to your nearest park or basement and like do a kata after this, because it does to me, I get that goosebumps and I'm like, yeah, I want to go do some kata tonight before I go to bed. Fuck, I hate this. We're well over an hour and a half. Sensei Suino, do you have any questions or thoughts you want to, I know we don't need to rush out of here because we're all crew, but.
No questions. A thought. Hanshi, I just want to thank you for reminding me that we have to accept the responsibility for keeping the art alive.
Yes.
Sometimes renewing that, right? There's not a lot of people in the world that could say that to me and make me reflect on my responsibility. But you've met my teacher, Yamaguchi Sensei, and you've seen him in action. You understand what's possible, and I've seen you strive for in your own life. So for you to say that, to remind me that, you know, it can be heavy sometimes, but it's what we live for now. I just want to thank you for making that point.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's funny.
And so that you know, Nick, and I think that you know, I'm the guy who went and seeked you out. And so I found those qualities in you.
Thank you.
Yeah, with the questions I asked you, that's the exact same thing I wrote down as roots. When you said that, I just, holy shit, I need to remember that myself. Like, we are doing something that wasn't made up yesterday and isn't being sold to us out of a vending machine. It's got roots, and the idea that 100 years from now, that's as if not more important. I'm going to sit with that and think about that.
We're like priests handling a religion in a way. It's in a way sacred because it's all about your entire being and your body, mind, and your spirit. So if you believe in spirituality and that and that we are spiritual beings, karate is very, or martial arts is very, very necessary. That's why you find most, I don't want to say advanced countries, but countries that are much older or all have some type of a martial art because it's good for the population.
Sensei Dauphin?
I guess I don't want to make this a shameless plug, but I do want to mention that Sensei Legacy, I've shown this a couple of times. Sensei Legacy has this book that he's written. And, you know, there's a lot of great fighting stuff in here. And then there's just, I'm listening to Sensei talk, and there's lots of things in here. Just these types of philosophies that Sensei Legacy is talking about. There's lots of them interwoven in here. And if you think you're going to buy this book and you're going to become a wizard of fighting, you're sorely mistaken. Like you need a sensei for that. But if this might whet your appetite to become a good fighter and seek out a good sensei like Sensei Legacy to guide you through. And I can tell you, you know, lots of people who look at this will think I'm a good fighter or not a good fighter. They'll have some opinions on that. But I will tell you that Sensei Legacy's teachings and his techniques and specifically his strategies have served me very well. I feel very confident to employ those strategies and those techniques. They've served me very well over my 30 years. But, you know, I guess, Sean, you asked the question, when Sensei was talking about Zen and Kata, I just wrote down 3 quick points here. I put no mind, present mind, one mind, right? There are 3 versions of what you could consider Zen to be, right? I've heard lots of people talk about those 3 things: no mind, present mind, and one mind. I want to just circle back to what I said about if you could train with anybody in time, I'm training with people that I would pick. If you went back, you might, like, I mean, we idolize these people and they should be idolized. We idolize Matsumura. Yamaguchi is a different thing because he was alive. You knew him, Sensei Suino. But if I said Miyamoto Musashi, we idolize these people. We look at them and we hold them up for all the greatest virtues of what we consider the martial arts to be. Yeah. But I still feel really strongly now is the best time. There might be lots of weak martial artists out there. Probably the same percentage of great ones are alive today. People like Sensei Suino and Sensei Legacy, as were alive back then. There's probably lots of shitty martial artists back then too. Lots of half-wits and no rape martial artists. Oh. And, you know, I will say that when I say now is the best time for martial arts, and this is building on what Sensei Suino said and Sensei Legacy, while I'm in awe of the thinking that both of my teachers have. Like, I'm in awe of it. I always leave these and I go away, and I will again tonight. I'll leave and I'll be thinking all week about things that were said. And if you've never seen Sensei Suino do Iaido, you're missing out. And if you never had the chance to stand in front of Sensei Legacy with fighting equipment on, you missed a life experience you're not going to get anywhere else. Physically, these two people are incredible. But the one thing that they have in common, a thought that I have, and with Matsumura or Jikiro Kano or Gichin Funakoshi or Itosu Yatsutsune or Miyamoto Musashi or Kamio Higashiona or Miyagi Chojin, the one thing they have in common with all of those people is a dedication to the martial art for their entire life and carrying it forward. That's the thing that inspires me now. That's the thing that lots of people kick and punch, but not lots of people kick and punch for 50, 60, 70, 80 years until they die on the steps going in to do more kicking and punching. To me, that's where inspiration should come. And that's what martial arts needs. More people who are just dedicated to doing it, not chasing ranks or prestige, or people who want to just do it. Just do it. They just want to be a warrior and they just want to do it. And I say it every week, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, that I am blessed to be living the life that I'm living. And I am eternally grateful to the people who teach me, and to Sensei Suino and Sensei Legacy for guiding me. I'm eternally grateful. I can never pay back. Never. There's nothing I can ever do.
Well, to everybody watching, I'm going to leave it there with Hanshi having the last word. I will say this, that we have a week off. Then we've got Sensei Cesar Burkowski, Sensei John Tarian's back, and then we have a guest who is like this close to being confirmed, so I'm not going to announce them. And if they come up a little short, Hanshi will have you, we'll beg you to get Billy Hines on for us.
Billy's coming. Billy Hines is coming. Here's a guy you want to listen to. Yeah,
this would be great to chat with all of you. But I definitely want to kind of leave it there and just enjoy the like backseat of the car vibe of what I just got out of the last few of you sharing. Hanshi Legacy, why don't you take us home? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to put out there?
Well, okay. For the people who are listening, probably mostly of you are martial artists, but if you want to give advice to people about new people who join, because those are the ones who eventually end up being like us. I'm sorry, I lost my, I got lost. Thought too many things.
That's all right. Anything you want to throw out to take us home?
Sorry.
Not at all.
So I'm gonna just ask me the question again. I'll get going again. Sorry.
Just really, I'd like you to say anything you'd like to the people watching and take us home.
Okay, so when people go to join a dojo, they should do better research, because 8, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna go into a bad dojo. You need to do research. Once you do your research and you find a good classical karate dojo, and then dedicate yourself to your sensei. And once you've made the choice, you have no other choice. Dedicate to your sensei within reason and do what he tells you.
Thanks, Hanshi.
That's what I would say.
Well, we've all done it, and we're all here for a reason. I'm the youngest guy here, and it's 28 years later. So yeah, thanks for that. Everybody watching, can't thank you enough. We love having you here. You could be watching this elsewhere. You could listen to the podcast later, by the way. Again, thanks to Robert Schlemsky. If you go to any of your output mechanisms or my iPhone right now and go to podcast, I can put in Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat, and our episodes are being uploaded, obviously, on YouTube. By the way, what Sensei Dolphin said, go rewatch this stuff. I don't even get it all, especially because, my mind's working to make sure I've got a good next question and make sure stuff's going on. And we're all sort of working here while we're doing this. To go back and rewatch it, whoo, it's gold. Hanshi Legacy, I can't thank you enough, not just for being our guest, but for being my sensei for 28 years. And I know we all agree. And I just want to thank everyone for watching, and thank you for being our first return guest.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we got one new message. Yep. That's Robert giving out the podcast link to Anchor, as well as obviously if you do it on the phone. Everybody watching, you're all the best. Go train hard. Take these things into the dojo. Take them into the park. Take them against the bag and your opponent when you can fight, because these aren't just theories. Thanks, everybody.